Hello YouTube, Dave here again. Today it is time to finish our look at the Barbarian class through the ages. This is going to wrap up the Pathfinder versions of the Barbarian. I've already looked at the Dungeons & Dragons versions. Just a quick note, obviously there are some Pathfinder products or some alternate class features and things for the Barbarian class that I won't be able to talk about because they're not in things that I own. Pathfinder Unchained is one that frequently comes to mind or is frequently brought up sort of in conversations about this sort of thing, and I don't own it. It's a little bit too expensive for me to go to pick up for only really doing it for the purposes of these videos. If it comes out as a pocket edition, which is what we have here, then I will be snatching that up immediately, and we'll obviously make future videos to incorporate the stuff there. Anyway, today we're going to be taking a look at some alternate features and some additional features and some interesting takes on Barbarian in the Advanced Player's Guide and the Advanced Class Guide. So we're going to take a look at the Advanced Player's Guide first, because chronologically that was the first one to come out. Like I said, this is also the Pocket Edition, which is how I plan on going back to collect first edition Pathfinder stuff. But yeah, it's all the exact same information, same page count. The print is a little bit smaller, so considering the fact that my eyes are not getting any younger, it does make it a little difficult to read, truthfully, but you know, at the same time, I still absolutely love these products, so I suffer through it, and eventually, once I get the opportunity to, I'll get my eyes checked and get whatever corrective information that I need there. So we're going to go straight to the Barbarian stuff here. So this book actually introduced several new classes that we're not going to be looking at for the purposes of this video, although I might look at the Alchemist, which appeared in this book, in a future video, but for now we just want to get to the alternate features for existing core classes. So here we go. Starting with the Barbarian. So the first thing that we have here is simply just a whole bunch of new rage powers. Some things like, boasting taunt. While raging, the Barbarian can incite a creature to attack her by making an intimidate check to demoralize. If the check succeeds, the target is also shaken as long as the Barbarian is visible and raging, or until it makes a melee attack against the Barbarian. The Barbarian receives a +2 circumstance bonus on the check for every alcoholic drink she has consumed during this rage. Oh, this is one that might be connected to some of the stuff that we have later on. Let's see here. This language-dependent mind affecting that relies on audible components. The Barbarian must be at least 6th level to select this power. There's also several abilities in here that have the word totem attached to them. So we have like Beast Totem, Chaos Totem, we have Fiend Totem. So we'll touch on the totem powers again a little bit later, but these are just sort of expanding the rage abilities or the rage powers that we had introduced in the first edition Pathfinder core rulebook, which for the record I think was an absolutely fantastic addition to the Barbarian, and a great way of customizing it so that if two players were playing the same class in a campaign, they might be able to feel a little bit different from one another. So we've got quite a few of those here. Like I said, I'm not going to go into detail on all of those because that's just sort of adding to the pool of things that were already introduced. However, there are also some class archetypes that are introduced in here. So archetypes are a series of substitution abilities for the classes that they're made for. In this situation, we're obviously looking at the Barbarian ones, but the way that these work is if you take this archetype or these substitution abilities, if they have multiple features that they grant, then you are committed to taking them all. It's not one of those pick and choose opportunities like we had with the racial substitution levels from the 3.5 like Races of series of books that we did in the in an earlier installment. So these are, if you decide to take this version of the Barbarian, then you take these abilities and they replace the ones that they say it does. You don't get to take, you know, the one that you like and then not the other, which again I think is a nice trade-off, and it's, you know, they're made to fit a theme anyway. So the first one that we have here is the Breaker. So this is just a barbarian that's good at breaking things and is also good at using the environment around them. So the first alternate feature here is called Destructive. Whenever the Breaker Barbarian makes a melee attack that targets basically an inanimate object, or makes the Sunder combat maneuver, which would be to like destroy someone's weapon or something, handheld object, she adds half her barbarian level minimum +1 on the damage roll. This ability replaces fast movement. So again, it's not against living creatures or against animated constructs. It would be against unattended, inanimate objects, or if you're trying to sunder someone's weapon or some sort of other object that they're holding in their hand. But adding half your level to the damage on that is a pretty decent ability. Like I said, it does come at the expense of the fast movement one. And fast movement is one of the ones that gets replaced a little bit in here. Then we have Battle Scavenger. So at 3rd level, the Breaker Barbarian suffers no penalty on attack rolls when using an improvised weapon or a weapon with the broken condition. In addition, she gains a +1 bonus to damage rolls with improvised weapons or broken weapons for every level above beyond 3rd. This replaces Trap Sense, and again, I kind of like that as well. I think that's a really cool ability. And then each of these also show some some of the rage powers that work well with this archetype. I'm not going to go through them all in these examples, but for example, the Breaker Barbarian, the ones that complement it would be Groundbreaker, Smasher, and Strength Surge. Strength Surge is one of the ones that appears in this book. But then we have underneath of it probably my favorite title for any archetype that I've seen so far. We have Brutal Pugilist. I don't know, I just love the word pugilist or pugilism. In fact, it kind of annoys the missus when I say it. So some barbarians focus on using their bare hands to tear their opponents limb from limb. These brutal pugilists also learn a great deal about various combat maneuvers, using them to cripple or crush their foes. So combat maneuvers are sort of things like to trip or bull rush, things that they sort of put them in their own separate category. In Pathfinder 1st edition, you had combat maneuver attack bonuses and then combat maneuver defenses, which were a little bit different than normal attack bonuses or armor classes. So here we have Savage Grapple. So this one actually gets 3 abilities. At 2nd level, the Brutal Pugilist takes only half normal penalties to dexterity attack rolls and combat maneuver checks when she has the grappled condition. She can also make an attack of opportunity against creatures trying to grapple, even if they possess the improved grapple feat or the grab special ability. If she hits with this attack of opportunity, she gains +2 circumstance bonus to her combat maneuver defense, CMD, against the grappled attempt. She cannot make these attacks of opportunity once a grapple has succeeded, and this replaces Uncanny Dodge. So we have Pit Fighter. At 3rd level, the Brutal Pugilist has learned combat tricks from fighting in pit brawls and gladiatorial arenas. She selects one combat maneuver and gains a +1 insight bonus on her combat maneuver bonus, or to her combat maneuver defense in that maneuver. This bonus increases to +2 if the barbarian is wearing no armor, but shields are permitted. At every 3 levels after 3rd, the barbarian may select another combat maneuver to add this bonus to the combat maneuver bonus or combat maneuver defense, CMB or CMD. This bonus can be applied to each maneuver no more than twice. Once has to be towards the bonus and once has to be towards the defense, and it replaces Trap Sense. And then we have Improved Savage Grapple. So at 5th level, the Brutal Pugilist takes no penalties instead of half the penalties to dexterity attack rolls and combat maneuver checks when she has the grapple condition. She's also treated as 1 size larger than her actual size when determined whether she can be grappled with or using the grab feature or swallowed by another creature, and this replaces Uncanny Dodge. Or Improved Uncanny Dodge, sorry. So that one, I just absolutely love that one. And then we go on to Drunken Brute, which I'm always a bit on the fence when it comes to the drunken characters in RPGs. But here we have Drunken Brute. So barbarians are known for their ability to consume potent drink, but Drunken Brutes turn drinking into a combat tactic, using the potent liquor to fuel their rage and grant them additional powers. So they gain the following class features. The following class feature: Raging Drunk. So this actually ties into the power that I had actually discussed earlier with the boasting taunt. So while raging, the Drunken Brute can drink a potion or a tankard of ale or similar quantity of alcohol as a move action that does not provoke attacks of opportunity. A potion has its normal effect, while an alcoholic drink allows the barbarian to maintain her rage that round without expending a round of rage for the day instead of the alcohol's normal effect. So the Pathfinder barbarian, again, their rage is a number of rounds equal to their Constitution modifier, plus a certain bonus, I think it is, or 3 plus their Constitution modifier. But then each time they level, they gain extra rounds they can add to it. So with this one, they can drink instead. So if they do that, if they consume an alcoholic drink using their move action, then they don't actually have to spend one of their limited rounds of rage per day. I think that's actually kind of a neat ability, even though, like I said, I'm always on the fence about like the Drunken Master type of characters. But this one, I don't know, this one I think makes sense, so I'll go with it. For each alcoholic drink consumed while raging, the barbarian is nauseated for 1 round when her rage expires, in addition to the normal fatigue that follows a rage. Tireless rage does not negate the nauseated condition, but the internal fortitude rage power does, and this replaces fast movement. So yeah, that's kind of a decent ability, I have to say. And there is a drawback. That's the other thing that I do kind of appreciate about it, is that, you know, they can do it to extend their rage, but they suffer like a really nasty hangover once the fight is over. Elemental Kin. Some barbarian tribes have strong ties to elemental force of nature. Their shamans anoint the warriors at birth, tying them to the patron element of the tribe and granting them lasting boons against such forces. An elemental kin has the following class feature: Elemental Fury. So at 3rd level, when the elemental kin takes an amount of energy damage equal to or greater than her barbarian level while raging, she adds 1 to the total number of rounds that she can rage per day. At 6th level and every 3 levels thereafter, the number of extra rounds per energy attack increases by +1 to a maximum of +6 rounds, or 6 rounds per energy attack at 18th level. This replaces Trap Sense. So that's sort of an interesting one. If they get hit with the element that they revere, then they, and they take a certain amount of damage, it just helps them rage longer. It's kind of neat. Then we have the Hurler. I like the sound of this one as well, mainly because it reminds me of an incident where, to solve a problem where nobody can jump across this stupid gap we had to get across, my barbarian and another player's barbarian just grabbed the lightest character in the party and threw him across. So I always have a soft spot for sort of like hurling or flinging allies. So a raging barbarian is frightening enough in melee, but some become skilled at throwing objects at their foes before closing in for the kill. A Hurler has the following class feature, which is just Skilled Thrower. They're skilled at throwing objects in combat, so they can increase the range of thrown objects by an extra 10 feet, which replaces fast movement. So instead of them getting the fast movement themselves, they kind of technically apply it to anything that they throw. Invulnerable Rager. Some barbarians learn to take whatever comes their way, shrugging off mortal wounds with ease. These barbarians invite their enemies to attack them and use pain to fuel their rage. An Invulnerable Rager has the following class features. Invulnerability. Sounds like a pretty good class feature. At 2nd level, the Invulnerable Rager gains DR equal to half her barbarian level. This damage reduction is doubled against non-lethal damage, and it replaces uncanny dodge, improved uncanny dodge, and damage reduction. So you get it way sooner, and it doesn't cap at like 6 or 7 that it does in Pathfinder. This is half your level, so you get it eventually up to 10. And then we have Extreme Endurance. At 3rd level, the Invulnerable Rager, I don't know why words are so hard right now, is inured to either hot or cold climate effects. You have to choose one, as if using Endure elements. In addition, the barbarian gains 1 point of fire or cold resistance for every 3 levels beyond 3rd. This replaces their Trap Sense. Now, it doesn't specify it in the ability, but I would have to assume that if you were, inured to hot temperatures, then you would have to take like the fire resistance, and if you're inert to cold temperatures or climates, that you would have to take the cold resistance. I just think that that makes sense, and if I were to run it, that's how I would absolutely rule it. But again, kind of cool stuff there. Mounted Fury. So this is all about a barbarian that just, is able to, or attacks, or, operates by being mounted. Sort of like a paladin or a cavalier type character, only with less tactic and grace and more just frothing at the mouth and, swinging of big heavy weapons. So their features give them Fast Rider. The speed of any mount the barbarian rides is increased by 10 feet. And you guessed it, it replaces fast movement. Then we have Bestial Mount, or Bestial Mount. At 5th level, the Mounted Fury gains the service of a feral mount. This ability functions as a druid's animal companion, using the barbarian's level -4 as her effective druid level. This companion must be one that she is capable of riding and is suitable as a mount. A medium barbarian can select a camel or a horse. A small barbarian can select a pony or a wolf, but can also select a boar or dog if she is at least 8th level. Whenever a barbarian is raging while mounted on her bestial mount, the mount gains +2 morale bonus to its strength. This ability replaces Uncanny Dodge, an improved Uncanny Dodge. Alright, moving on. The Savage Barbarian. Some barbarians are truly savage, having little training in modern arms. These savage barbarians learn to avoid blows and toughen up their skin. They have the following class features. Naked Courage. At 3rd level, the Savage Barbarian gains a +1 dodge bonus to AC and a +1 morale bonus on saving throws against fear when wearing no armor. Shields are permitted, and this increases by +1 for every 6 levels after 3rd, which replaces the Trap Sense ability. So, again, sort of interesting that it's going back to the idea of barbarians not wearing armor that we see in other RPGs that came out afterwards. Just sort of interesting. Natural Toughness. At 7th level, the Savage Barbarian gains a +1 natural armor bonus to AC when wearing no armor. Shields are permitted. This bonus increases by +1 for every 3 levels beyond 7th, and this replaces their damage reduction. So, dodge bonuses, which are one of the few things that actually stacked with other dodge bonuses, and natural armor. So that's pretty good for trading off for damage reduction and trap sense. Then we have Superstitious. Many barbarians distrust magic, while most just shy away from magic. Others focus their rage on users of such foul arts. These barbarians are naturally distrusting and develop keen senses to protect them from harm. A superstitious barbarian has the following class feature. Sixth Sense. The Superstitious Barbarian gains a +1 bonus on initiative and a +1 insight bonus to AC during surprise rounds. This bonus increases by +1 for every 3 levels after 3rd, and that replaces their Trap Sense. And then they have Keen Senses. At 7th level, the Superstitious Barbarian gains Low Light Vision, triple normal vision range in dim light if they already have Low Light Vision. At 10th level, they gain Dark Vision 60 feet, or add 60 feet if they already have Dark Vision. And at 13th level, they gain Scent. At 16th level, she gains Blind Sense. And at 19th level, she gains Blind Sense 30 feet. This ability replaces damage reduction. So this one, I honestly have to admit, looking through it, it doesn't really seem to line up with the whole concept of magic or dealing with magic. It's more of just a super aware barbarian. I don't know. I think this one didn't quite work out the way that the flavor before it was sort of supposed to be. I don't know. It's just a little weird. I have to admit that one's kind of weird. And then we have the Totem Warrior. So this one doesn't actually get any alternate class features. However, we do go back to the new rage powers, and you do have different ones that are based off of totems. So with these ones, you can only ever take one totem. Each totem has a lesser, standard, and greater version of itself that you can take at different levels. So, for example, the lesser one you can always take at as soon as first level, or as soon as you get your first raging power. The standard version you usually get at 6th level, and then you can normally take the greater version at around 10th level. So these are just, again, things that your class would sort of venerate, or things that they sort of channel when they're going through their rages, or just as part of their society. And it kind of ties into what we had with the playtest, actually, which I thought was kind of interesting, with the totems, or with the instincts that we have in the finalized version of 2nd edition Pathfinder. So I just think that that's really cool. And like I said, there are several different ones: Beast Totem, Chaos Totem, Fiend Totem, and then there's like Spirit Totem. There's just all kinds of different interesting ones. Let's just take a look at let's take a look at the Beast Totem, because it does sort of line up with the animal instinct that I had discussed in the Pathfinder 2nd edition one. So Beast Totem. We'll start with the lesser ability. So this is while raging, the barbarian gains 2 claw attacks. These attacks are considered primary attacks and are made at the barbarian's full base attack bonus. The claws deal 1d6 points of slashing damage, 1d4 if small, plus the barbarian strength modifier. So that's sort of, again, similar to what we have with the animal instinct or the beast tone from the playtest. Then the standard version says while raging, the barbarian gains +1 natural armor bonus. This bonus increases by +1 for every 4 levels the barbarian has attained. A barbarian must have the lesser beast tone and rage power to select this, and must be 6th level, or must be at least 6th level to select this power. And then the greater beast totem is while raging, the barbarian gains the pounce special ability, allowing her to make a full attack at the end of the charge. In addition, the damage from her claws increases to 1d8 or 1d6 if you're a small-sized barbarian, and the claws deal ×3 damage on a critical hit. The barbarian must have the beast totem rage power to select this rage power, and they must be at least 10th level to use it. So yeah, again, the totem one, it's interesting because it sort of worked its way into like the default version of the barbarian class in the later edition, or even during the playtest for that later edition. So it does seem like from a very early point when thinking of ways to introduce a new edition of the rules that they obviously liked that idea, and I think it was a pretty cool one. So overall, some very interesting additions to the barbarian in the Advanced Player's Guide. And finally, we are going to be taking a look at the Advanced Class Guide. So this introduces, again, some new features that you can take for the different classes in the game. So we're going to go right to the Barbarian one here, obviously. So here we have the Barbarian, so some new abilities. This just adds some new rage powers to the mix. What's interesting is that the rage powers in here, similar to how we had Totems introduced in the Advanced Player's Guide, this one has Bloodlines. So these are ones, once again, that when you choose a bloodline, it's got a lesser, standard, and greater, and you can't mix and match. You literally, once you take a bloodline, you get access to the 3 aspects of that bloodline, but you can't change to something else. You can't just take the lesser version of one bloodline and then take the lesser version of another bloodline later. You are locked into your choices. We're not going to go through them all here, but we do have Abyssal Blood, Celestial Blood, Draconic Blood, Elemental Blood, Fey Blood, and then we have Infernal Blood, and Undead Blood. Let's take a look at the Undead Blood, just as sort of an example, because that seems kind of interesting. So, Undead Blood, we have to look at the lesser one first, because that's the first one you get access to. So it says, while raging, when the barbarian hits a creature with the charge attack, the creature she hits becomes shaken for a number of rounds equal to half her barbarian level, minimum of 1 round. This effect does not stack with other fear effects to cause a stronger condition, which, that's fair. The standard version, Undead Blood, while the barbarian is raging, her melee attacks are treated as if they were made by a weapon with the Ghost Touch weapon special ability. I have to wonder if that's the same thing in Pathfinder as it was in D&D, because Ghost Touch ignored armor. It basically made touch attacks, so like your dex and your dodge and certain other bonuses might apply, but yeah, it's kind of interesting. And then we have Undead Blood Greater. While raging, the Barbarian gains cold resistance 10, as well as DR 10 slash against non-lethal damage. So 10 slash nothing. So any non-lethal damage that they try to attack a Barbarian with, if they have this ability, they just knock 10 points off of that altogether. So yeah, some interesting new rage powers. With different bloodlines in here as well, just kind of some cool stuff. And but that's not all that's in here. Now I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about these in this particular video, because I feel like that could be a subject for its own video. However, what we have in the Advanced Class Guide are a series of what's referred to as hybrid classes. And this is something that I had heard of, but I never had a chance to sort of see how they operated. But man, I really gotta say that I love these. So hybrid classes essentially are a 20-level class progression where you have elements from two other core classes combined together. And they sort of put a new spin on everything. So it's not just, mashing them together without any thought or without any new spins on things. They actually, make a really interesting combination here. We also do have Bloodlines, interestingly enough, with this one here. So this is the Blood Rager, which is sort of a hybrid character of a Barbarian and a Sorcerer class. So I'm not going to go through everything that they have here, but it is interesting that they have the Bloodlines, which grant them some bonus feats that they can get, as well as spells and some new Bloodline powers that they can access as they go up in level. So I'm not going to go through all those here. But the interesting thing that they have is the Blood Rage. So Blood Rage initially functions very similar to the regular Barbarian Rage, in that it lasts for a number of rounds per day, equal to, here's the number, 4 plus their con modifier, and then each time they gain a level, it goes up by additional 2 rounds. They get a +4 bonus to Strength and Constitution, a +2 bonus on morale, or morale bonus to will saves, and takes a -2 penalty to armor class. The hit points function like an increase to an ability score would, so when the rage is over, the hit points are subtracted from your current total. They're not used like temporary ones. So at first, it looks very, very similar to the regular Barbarian. However, they start getting abilities that allow them to cast spells. So we have blood casting. So at 4th level, they gain the ability to cast spells even while blood raging. They can also cast these spells defensively and can attempt concentration checks for these spells while blood raging. While blood raging, you can cast and concentrate only on Blood Rager spells, so any spells they might have from some other form of multiclassing, they can't use that ability. But then you get into your Greater and your Mighty Blood Rage. So your Greater Blood Rage, it increases the attribute modifiers similar to what Greater Rage does in the core version of the rules. However, in this one, once you enter your Rage, you can immediately cast a 1st or 2nd level Blood Rager spell on yourself, which is kind of interesting. So it has to be one that targets only yourself, so it would be some sort of buff spell, obviously. But yeah, you can do that. It lasts for the duration of the Blood Rage as well. It does consume the spell slot. So it's not like a free spell, for example, but they can cast it as part of the rage action, which is pretty cool. And then Mighty Rage that they get at 20th level also increases things like we had before. So it goes to +8 to Strength and Con, +4 to Will saves. But they can also, at this point, use their Mighty Blood Rage to cast any of their Blood Rager spells that have a target that is themselves, that has a personal target, and it's not limited to any level, so it can go all the way to their maximum. Although, to be fair, their maximum isn't super high. They only go up to 4th level, and they don't get a ton of spells, although their charisma can give them bonus spell slots, so they can add things that way. This is kind of just a really interesting class combination, and it's not the first time I've seen a combination of Rager Barbarian and Spellcaster, but I have to say that the Blood Rager sounds way cooler than the Rage Mage, which was a prestige class in 3rd edition or 3.5. But yeah, just sort of an interesting interesting concept. This is obviously, this one leans way more heavily in line of the Barbarian than it does with the Sorcerer. This one also gets a D10 for hit dice, so that's another bit of a trade-off there. But yeah, just a really cool idea. I just really love the concept of these hybrid classes, and to me, this is what I would use as a substitution for multi-classing. Because I know that more of these did, come out with future releases as well. So really cool stuff there. There is one more Barbarian one that we have in here. So let's just see if we can find that real quick. There we go. We have the Scald, which is a combination of Barbarian and Bard. This is one that sort of also leans more heavily towards the Bard side of things, and the hit dice that we get here is a D8 instead of a D12. I think Bards normally got a D6, if I recall correctly, or maybe they even got a D8, but yeah, so this is kind of just in this, so they have like the Bardic knowledge, but essentially they're just like, they're more of a shamanistic type of character. They're, they use their songs to incite, similar to bardic inspiration. You have raging song, and so it functions very similar to bardic inspiration. So they don't actually have the traditional rage feature of a barbarian. Instead, they have inspired rage, which does go up in potency as you increase in level. So with inspiring rage at first level, it affects allies. So that's something that the Bard, or the Scald in this case, would do to boost the rest of the party. So characters affected, or allies affected, gain a +2 morale bonus to strength and constitution, a +1 morale bonus to will saving throws, but also taking -1 penalty to armor class. So it starts off a little bit weaker than the standard Barbarian Rage, only granting half of the bonuses and only half of the penalty. Another thing that's important to note is that while they're under the effects, they can't use like any charisma, dexterity, or intelligence-based skills except for acrobatics, fly, intimidate, and ride, and any ability that requires patience and concentration. So at 4th level and every 4 levels thereafter, the bonus increase by 1. So yeah, but just kind of a cool concept there, and that's they also get like damage reduction. They get some other interesting abilities as well. I'm not going to go into a huge detail with them here, like I said, for the purposes of this video, because I think hybrid classes deserve their own separate video. But I just thought it was kind of interesting to see these concepts sort of brought to life. So yeah, really interesting things there with the hybrid classes, with the Scald and the Blood Rager. And the Blood Rager also works really well, although they don't gain the Barbarian Rage powers. I feel like they included the Bloodline Rage powers for standard Barbarians if you didn't want to be the Blood Rager. But yeah, just some really, really cool stuff there. And that is basically the expanded versions or alternate features of the Barbarian class in Pathfinder's 1st edition. At the point that I'm releasing this, there haven't been any alternate class features for the 2nd edition version, but I think that this was a really interesting video to do, actually, because going through it was really kind of, I don't want to say eye-opening, but it was very interesting to see how some of these early concepts became part of the default class later. So obviously some of these really caught on. So like to see the totems introduced in the Advanced Player's Guide and see that they became a part of the Barbarian class by default later on, it's just nice. It's just always cool to see that direct connection from the past to the present, and just see the evolution of the class overall. And the Bloodline things is interesting as well. I'm sure that future 2nd edition Pathfinder books will probably touch on those as well. And those hybrid classes they're something else, I have to say. But they are really, really interesting, and just a sort of a cool idea. So that is it. That is my look at the Barbarian class through the ages. We've looked at Dungeons & Dragons all the way from 1st edition AD&D to 5th edition, and we've looked at Pathfinder 1st edition, the playtest, and then finally 2nd edition. So I hope you enjoyed this series so far. I had a lot of fun working on it. I hope you guys found it at least a little bit interesting to go through, and stay tuned for the next installment, when we're going to be taking a look at the other half of the Skald hybrid class as we start looking at the history of the Bard. Probably one of the most derided classes in all role-playing game history, but we'll get to that in that series. So yeah, thank you guys very much for watching, hope you enjoyed, and I will see you next time. Take care.